I just saw this report from Shams that the Mavericks are considering shutting down Luca and Kyrie, even though they're one game back from the play-in. First of all, I don't like the play-in. Um,
I hate the plan.
like, no, these teams don't deserve to be in the playoffs at all, at all. They just like it because it's an extension of the playoffs, and they'll get
It's more
higher ratings. But
exactly. It's more games, more eyeballs, more money. More TV, more airtime. Yeah,
but it's just, I mean, it's not out of the question that like worse teams will sneak through. The NHL is doing this too with some of its more attempts at creative playoff formatting. 1 through 8, East and West. That's it. That's all we need to do. 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6,
and
4 versus 5. Done.
I listen. I do like there are, of course, with the NFL, with March Madness, there are obviously scenarios and platforms in sports where sudden death is like an appreciable format, which I like. But a part of me, I guess it's also just what I grew up on. And it's not, obviously, this isn't even ancient history. The play-in's been around for like 2 years, 3 years. I just more mean, I think there is something, even for a 1 versus 8 series or a 2 versus 7 series. I appreciate how NBA playoff series develop. Like how
Yeah.
much there is something about like a playoff series in terms of how that is narrativized relative to a one game sample.
Yeah.
The ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, the home crowd, the away crowd, getting to see both ends of that, all the nuances of both experiences over the course of a best of 7 or best of 5 matchup, whichever, whatever the case may be, because that's also, I guess, different in baseball as well.
Although
But
they corrected that in baseball, the
oh
issue
right,
with Southern Death, because now it's 2 out of 3.
right, and which even that to me I think is even preferable because there is just a larger sample size and it's more exciting when it kind of gets to where there are far more beats to hit where it's like, oh, a team has a huge comeback down 2-1, 3-0, there's, or it's locked at 2-2, 3-3, like those types of dynamics that you can't get in a one game sample size. And like you said also, do I necessarily need to see like the 9 and 10 seed play one another?
No. Bad quality.
That's the thing is like I think the first play in, if I'm remembering correctly, the Pacers like destroyed the Hornets. It was like 150 to 103 or something like that. It was like complete schlock. And it's like you just wonder what the value is, what the import is, and what like guys like that are really playing for.
Yeah, and it's completely unnecessary, and we already have way too many regular season games to determine who ends up being in the playoffs altogether. Like 82 games is too much in general, regardless. I just like the downfall of the Mavericks is something to behold, and I've been following them closely because we are Knicks fans. The Knicks have the Dallas Mavericks first round pick this year, unless the Mavericks are in the top 10. And essentially, unless someone leaps up from the play-in into the lottery, into the top 10, if they're not in the play-in, they're pretty much guaranteed to be in the top 10. So I'm like pissed about this because I desperately wanted this Knicks pick in this draft that's supposedly one of the best in recent memory. But like the Mavericks have gone 1-7, 1-8 in the last 8 or 9 games. Like everything that we thought was going to happen to the Mavericks, the fact that they gave up way too much of their serviceable core in order to make this trade work really, for Kyrie Irving, and the fact that this dude is on an expiring contract and is gonna ask out at the end of the year, and they traded the first round pick to if I'm remembering the terms of the trade accurately, to Brooklyn. Like,
Yep.
we all saw this coming. They were going to be a defensively porous team because Luka's not a great defensive player, as we know, and Kyrie's not great either, and they're redundant, the two of them. It's just not working, and we all saw it coming.
And like from Brunson signing with the Knicks, as well as Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie being collateral in the Kyrie trade, like the difference between the Mavs that made the conference finals and this team is that they don't have their 3 other best players by a mile next to Luca Doncic. They have Kyrie Irving and and their supporting cast is severely diminished. I mean, these are guys like, don't get me wrong, like I like Davis Bertans, I like Dwight Powell, I like Maxi Kleber, I like Josh Green. I think they're all like fine players. It's just not enough to augment and supplement a team that has serious, or did at some point have serious playoff / championship aspirations.
Yeah.
And especially if you have two ball dominant guys like Luca Doncic and Kyrie Irving, you also need guys who are going to be able to defend the other players.
Yeah.
And I'm not even necessarily, I'm not trying to even knock Luca on defense. Kyrie's not a great defender. I mean, that's, I think, kind of apparent. But Luca also is an enormously high usage player. So he's the engine, he's the fulcrum of that team's offense, for better or worse. So, like, to give him some assistance on the defensive side is, I think, absolutely necessary for them to even be, like, in spitting distance of a
It was
conference finals game.
actually the exact wrong trade for them to make. I mean, I can't think of there were other players on the market that would have made a lot more sense for. Could there have been a worse trade for the Mavericks organization at this current juncture, especially given the fact that Luka Doncic appears to be getting increasingly disgruntled and wanting to get out of Dallas? Like, that was the time period to build around him in a way that was intelligent. And I feel like Mark Cuban just saw some sort of, market, the ability to get a problematic, disgruntled player for below his market value in theory, which is also what he did with Kristaps Porzingis, who I think at the time had been accused of rape, and it's not worked out well for them. So, like, as much as Cuban is this charismatic guy and everyone knows him from Shark Tank and whoa, he wears t-shirts, but he's a billionaire, it doesn't, he's not doing a good job right now as the owner of the Mavericks, Bradley.
Well, I think there's certain pitfalls to having, like, a celebrity or, like, a notable owner, where sometimes that person's comments, and this is me talking as a Knicks fan, obviously, one of the more high profile owners in terms of their odious and unbearable behavior. But Cuban specifically, I mean, it's hard when their reactions or their responses to things become narratives of all of their own, where it's like, the Mavs had that bizarre play where they start on the wrong end of the court. They filed a protest motion to reverse the outcome of the game because of how that was called. And it's just like, I sometimes think it's hard when somebody's beyond, like, the team, like, your owner is also one of the main characters. And two, we've also just seen this in terms of his, as we were talking about before the show, Cuban's personnel decisions, Cuban's conduct as the head, not only the head of the organization, but a very hands-on owner.
Yeah.
Someone who is very much involved in the personnel decisions all the way down for, like, front office, roster, and everywhere in between. There was a huge investigation, I believe it was on ESPN.com, of some of the really, really unacceptable and pervasive and kind of insidious practices at the Mavericks team facility, either or the Mavericks corporate headquarters, where the beat writers who worked for the Dallas Mavericks, that's where they were and where their leadership were. One of their reporters was apparently, he would watch porn at the office and without any sort of reprimand. People kind of just knew that and were sort of just, like, desensitized towards it. The general manager for a very long time was credibly accused of many different, sexual harassment and assault allegations. And in an interview that Cuban did with Rachel Nichols, he basically was like, I didn't really know the guy that well.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, well, you're the owner of the team, and he was the general manager for, like, 14 years.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like, it's a little hard to believe that you had basically no interaction to the point where this kind of just happened under your nose without you even knowing about it.
I mean, we can be real there. He's lying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't pass the smell test. It's almost impossible knowing how, as we see he's at every game, he tweets about it, he's wearing a shirt saying, resist oppression or whatever about the fucking no call that they got. Like, he's really, really heavily embedded in the day-to-day operations. It's really hard to imagine that he didn't know about any of that stuff. So I just was saying to you before, and I just think it really bears repeating, they're kind of underratedly a really bad and toxic organization.
Yes, I mean, and so I've not liked them for years. I wish Luka Doncic would get out of there. And the fact that they are now going to be tanking for the rest of the year, or the last, 3 or 4 games, is frustrating given my investment in them winning some more, just to keep them in that 11 to 15 range so the Knicks can take that pick. But yeah, sad.
Also, I wanted to. So a few people in YouTube chat do not agree with our play-in takes, and
Oh no, we're right. Yeah.
they're saying that it incentivizes competition at the end of the season, and makes some of the more latter twilight regular season games exciting because people are jockeying for a play-in spot.
You know what does that? Trying to make the playoffs.
Well, but the other thing that my kind of hot take, I said this in chat, but my kind of hot take there is I'm pretty pro like some level of relegation in like every league. I think it would make things way more interesting if there were some real material consequence for underperforming. And maybe that's not necessarily relegation. I just think there are other ways potentially to disincentivize tanking and disincentivize
It's not about disincentivizing
angling
taking
for the lottery.
They're not being honest about that because they already have flattened the odds for the lottery. They've already done that.
That's true.
So the point is that they're just trying to make more money. That's it. And the players, NBA players are already playing way too much. The 82 games is too much. It should be 72. Same should be for the NHL. The owners just want the ticket revenue, and so like that's part of the issue. And so no. Competition at the end of the season is also incentivized by we need to get to the 8th seed, the 7th seed. We need to climb up in the standings. I mean, that's so dumb. That's not true.
I would love, but the thing is, I would just love if like we had similar discourse as it is in English football, where it's like instead of like oh my gosh, like Crystal Palace is concerned that they're going to be relegated to the Championship League, it's like oh my god, the Rockets are going to go to the G League if they don't win this game. It's like the Pistons are going to become a G League team if they don't win. I just think it would be so great.
That would be hilarious. That's a good point.
Dwayne Casey's hair on fire, like oh my god, I'm gonna get fired so bad if we get relegated. But hope springs eternal.
Yeah.
Some big reforms potentially.
Snarkanorski writes in, disincentivize tanking. We can't do relegation. How about if your team misses the playoffs 4 straight years, you have to sell it? Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
Unfortunately, the owners that write the rules for the league are not going to make that case.
I'd be pro tanking. I'd be pro tanking for the Knicks if that were the case.
Oh yes, tank for the end of time.
Lose every game.